Hello, and greetings to the readers of Paradigm Community. My name is Kavazi. I'm one of the founders. And with me today is Zaki Manian, the head of development at Cosmos Network. Well, today we wanted to talk about many different things with you, Zaki, because we're really looking forward to the solutions brought by your team and yourself. And pretty much it would be great if you start with telling us about your background. When did you first hear about crypto and Cosmos? And how did you become the part of the project?
So, okay, so I'll do the fast version of the story. So, in 2013, I started civil liberties organization called Restore the Fourth. The Fourth Amendment in the United States is sort of the right to privacy and the right to require the government to have warrants before it surveils or seizes property from citizens. I started that organization. I was starting to get more interested in cryptography and security and privacy. I sort of had this realization maybe the prior year that, I used to be involved in the development of medical and scientific devices. And I sort of realized that the same terrible software that I was writing was the same terrible software that ran the entire world. And this was going to be bad. And I started to realize that, all of these hypothetical vulnerabilities were all being exploited. And so I started getting interested in what do you do about that? So I started learning about cryptography. I started learning about software security and all of these things. And sort of that, in the Restore the Fourth community, there were a lot of Bitcoiners and early cryptocurrency people. This is like 2013, before the first sort of Bitcoin bubble, early 2013. And so I started learning more about cryptocurrencies then. I started going, so sort of November, December of that year, I started going to Bitcoin devs. I started meeting people, or so around that time I met Jay Kwan. I started a sort of enterprise focused blockchain company in 2014 called SkewChain. And we organized a conference and sort of bringing together a lot of the people who were thinking about sort of public blockchains, new public blockchains at the time. Vitalik was there, Vlad was there, Jay was there, Ethan was there. It's where Jay and Ethan first met. And so that was kind of like, so around this time, there was like a group of people, this is like 2015, there was a group of people, Dominic Williams, Jay, me, Ethan, Vlad, who all had this hobby, which was like scalable public blockchains. And at the time, no one really cared about this. But we started to design various systems. And one of the systems that we designed was the sort of idea of Cosmos, about how do you take Tendermint and build a scalable system out of it. And so, I was one of the first people to, I was literally the first person to say yes to putting money into Cosmos. I was, I was very involved in a lot of the design stuff. And then sort of when 2017 rolled around, I decided I wanted to work on public blockchains more. And then Jay and what I really wanted to do was launch a blockchain. That was really what I wanted to do. I wanted to launch a blockchain in 2018. I had a lot of ideas about, how launch could be done differently than what people were doing. How you could make it much more community oriented, how you could teach more people how to run the software, et cetera. And I thought that, Cosmos and Tendermint was really the right platform to use to sort of change the way public blockchain and proof of stake launches were going to work. So that's what I worked on in 2018. I sort of built the validator community and got the validator community for the launch of Cosmos, launched Cosmos in 2019. And this year has been basically about finishing off the Cosmos sort of white paper vision. So we have the Stargate upgrade coming, and I've been managing the Stargate upgrade process with the goal of making that as smooth as possible. But once Stargate is done, we'll have completed the vision of the Cosmos white paper, which then frees me up to like build things on top of Cosmos.
And what happened to the community to restore the Fourth Amendment?
So Restore the Fourth is still around. We came up with we have made a bunch of different policy changes, things like the San Francisco facial recognition ban, which was the first city in the country to ban facial recognition. A lot of that stuff has originated, as your readers may or may not know. We have a lot of problems with police reform and law enforcement reform in the United States. And so it is, we keep fighting the good fight, but the work is nowhere near done.
Well, the fight will continue on then. So then could you tell us, our readers, a little bit about the Cosmos network itself? I mean, what kind of problems are your team trying to solve right now? I mean,
so right now what we're trying to do is we're focused on sort of delivering Stargate. And what Stargate is primarily, Stargate is a couple of things. Stargate is primarily like the biggest piece of Stargate is, Cosmos was basically three ideas that we wanted to sort of showcase and get into the world. So one idea was this idea of BFT consensus running with public validators. BFT consensus research had existed, for almost sort of 40 years. It was like in the early 80s that the first, starting with Leslie Lamport and then the DLS protocol, so all of these ideas that you could have, computers agreeing with each other in adversarial environments with malicious actors have been around for 40 years, but nobody had ever deployed these things. And then Satoshi came up with this very, quite elegant system of proof of work. But, there was Jay Quan was the first person to really sort of want to seriously explore the idea of how do you take some of the learnings from Bitcoin and some of the prior research and combine them, and that was Tendermint. So that was the first idea. It's like BFT consensus in public groups, sort of open to people. The next sort of key idea was this idea of pairing this with proof of stake. That there could be blockchain consensus in public networks without, burning electricity.
Well, yeah.
So that was the next idea. And then the third idea was this idea of interoperable sovereign blockchains. So that there was this idea that you could, I would say most of the people who were working on scalable public blockchains in 2016 were very convinced that shared security and interoperability were strongly connected ideas, that if you wanted to have interoperable systems, they also had to be in the same security domain, that you needed sharding. That sharding was the only way that you were going to have multiple interoperable blockchains. And I was aware from the 90s, where he really designed an economics, like a whole smart contract system around the idea of interoperable, what he called VATs, that did not come from the same security domain. And I was like, this can be applied to blockchains. And so that was the idea of IBC. And so the Stargate upgrade is, so when we launched Cosmos in 2019, we realized the first two visions, this open public BFT consensus, which has spawned numerous other protocols, and the proof of stake concept. And sort of missing piece was this IBC protocol. And now that the IBC protocol is effectively complete, the Stargate upgrade is about bringing that to market.
Well, then we have started talking about the inter-blockchain communication. Could you please try to describe it in plain words for our readers? Like, how would you describe it for a person that is not really tech savvy?
Okay, so here's what sort of the core idea of IBC is in Ethereum, and with sort of the emergence of DeFi, we are starting to see these like money Legos starting to be plugged into each other. And when we started designing Cosmos, this was a world that we were very much envisioning was what was going to happen, that like people would build money Legos. And what IBC is about building money Legos that work between blockchains. So we're starting with what we call ICS 20, which is a token transfer system between blockchains. But basically, IBC is permissionlessly extensible protocol by which you can think of blockchain. So instead of having smart contracts invoking functions on each other, you can actually have blockchains invoking functions and smart contracts on other blockchains. And so this sort of changes the sort of interoperability characteristics, composability characteristics of sort of the distributed financial world from a system of that's really like locked into a single blockchain, single world computer where everything is, into an internet of secure BFT computers that are calling functions on each other and sort of able to build in a sort of emergent financial order.
Yeah. So with this said, what do you think was the most challenging problem of Stargate development?
What was the most challenging? The most challenging part of Stargate development is that we decentralized the dev team in the process of building Stargate.
That's always challenging.
And so, Stargate is probably the most complex transformation of a change to a public blockchain that has ever been done by a decentralized dev team. There are, 5 major teams working across different organizations that are building different pieces of Stargate, that are, and we've all been working together and collaborating. But, when we launched the Cosmos Hub, it was like, it was everybody worked for one company, basically. Almost everybody was working on it. We all worked for All in Bits. We were all, it was all, one Slack that we were all in. There was a clear hierarchy of, I was in charge of launching and everybody worked for me. And that was the way we did it. The Stargate effort is very different in its flavor, which is, while I am the coordinator of getting us through the Stargate, it really represents many people's decisions about technical trade-offs, vision, direction, and there are lots of different teams that own different subcomponents of it, though I have been sort of riding herd on the integrations.
Would you say that the productivity of the team has dropped since the decentralization of development, or not?
Productivity, no. No. we have, there are definitely more and more talented, more people working on Cosmos, more talented people working on Cosmos. There's excellent technical work that's being done across the Cosmos. What the difference between doing this in a decentralized setting and in a centralized setting is, in a centralized setting, you have a single product management sort of team who, and it was like me and Jack Zamplin during the Cosmos Hub launch, and we were basically just like in the mix of everyone's dev work, being like, are you making technical decisions? And we were just constantly updating on. Now when we have all of these sort of independent teams, that's not my role. My role is certainly to express where the process is blocked, but if the a team wants to focus on, teams have their own roadmaps, and their roadmaps don't necessarily mean fix my problem, prioritize fixing. If I'm blocked getting a testnet out, that doesn't necessarily mean that my needs go to the top of the list. They have their own roadmap, they have their own goals, they're making their own trade-offs.
Well, that's a proper decentralized way of doing stuff. And you have already stated that the launch of Stargate will complete the roadmap, and pretty much what will be the next focus? What do you think?
So, once we're through Stargate, and we have realized the vision of interoperable blockchains, I think then the question really becomes, both for the Cosmos Hub and for the wider ecosystem, what purpose do atoms serve in this ecosystem? And, how should we move forward? And I am I'm pretty strongly of the opinion, so I published this sort of memo I call Atom 2021, which sort of describes what I think are the next set of features that the Cosmos Hub should work on. And those three features, staking derivatives, a peg zone with Ethereum, and an automated market maker. So like a Uniswap style market maker. So, we've made a lot of progress since July on the Atom 2021 initiative. So I'm working in a team between Iqlusion, which is sort of my validator business, and Althea, which to bring Peggy to maturity as a product. I'm working with and then B Harvest, who is a longtime member of the community, and All in Bits are working on automated market maker design that I'm pretty much a fan of. And then we've been working on the forums on staking derivatives.
Yeah, by the way, about PeggyJV and Iqlusion, what are you excited to build next? I mean, could you tell us a bit more about your projects?
Yeah, so post Stargate, what has changed during this sort of DeFi boom has been that we've onboarded a lot more users directly into blockchain protocols. The blockchain user base up until very recently, up until this year, has mostly been people who are speculating these assets on centralized exchanges. Yeah. The real change has been users are starting to interact directly with these protocols, mostly Ethereum. And that is, what is exciting to me is that only through direct user interaction do things like, interfaces, wallets, cross-chain infrastructure, relayers, all of these things, they only get stronger through real users. sort of working on these things. And
Mm-hmm.
so what PeggyJV is about looking at the needs of the Ethereum user base and building products that sort of bring value and utility from the Cosmos technology stack and the Cosmos network to those users. How can we show how there are things, how Cosmos sort of adds value to the Ethereum ecosystem? And while I don't think this is the entire purpose of Cosmos, and Cosmos, should entirely, that's why, it's not a Cosmos effort. It is PeggyJV's vision, mission, product roadmap that is really about looking primarily at this interface point between Ethereum users and Cosmos users. And what we realize is that there's a lot more you can do, that Cosmos can add a lot more value to Ethereum beyond just this question of, okay, like we built a thing, and like we built a bridge and you can move your tokens from the Ethereum network to the IBC network. Like that is certainly one use case, and we're going to build that. We call that Up 101.
Yeah, I mean, pursuing use cases for high-end users is like, in my opinion, is absolutely proper strategy on evolution of things that you're doing. And pretty much, I'd like to ask you about your favorite projects in the Cosmos ecosystem right now. Just want to hear your opinion about the cases which are coming to life, and in your opinion, what will be driving the market of the future and the Cosmos ecosystem in the future as well.
So, I mean, in my mind, the two probably most sort of, the projects that I spend the most time helping. So, I'm like, what is my time? My time is, I spend a lot of time helping, Althea. I spend a lot of time helping, with Peg, and I spend a lot of time working on PeggyJV. I spend a lot of time working on Stargate. I spend a lot of time helping Agoric. I think what Agoric is doing is really key to scaling DeFi and bringing more developers into the DeFi ecosystem. We could come back to that thesis. The other project that I spend a lot of time helping out with is Lazy Ledger, which I kind of view as really what I think is the most promising path towards building a large shared security system that is as reliable as Cosmos is today. And so these are kind of my favorite projects. These are kind of my favorite projects in the Cosmos ecosystem, and sort of where I've been spending most of my time.
And how is DeFi on Cosmos manifesting with IBC and beyond? I mean, do you think any steps will be taken for DeFi revolution inside Cosmos ecosystem when IBC is out?
I'm certainly planning on launching a lot of DeFi things on top of Cosmos when DeFi is out. I know, there are. So, I mean, the most rational, the most interesting, the biggest thing that So one of the things that I think is exciting is I've been expecting yield farming to be a thing for many, many years. But once we have an AMM on the Cosmos Hub, and we have a DeFi ecosystem, once we have Peggy, we've really created a very yield farming friendly ecosystem inside of Cosmos. And I think that, this is going to change the way DeFi projects bootstrap themselves on top of Cosmos. Where right now, the primary source of liquidity for DeFi projects is the Binance Launchpad process. You look at most of the DeFi things inside of Cosmos, There's a lot of interesting technology happening on Kava and Thorchain, but it's all very centered around Binance as a source of liquidity. And what I think the combination of the AMM from Atom 2021 and the Peggy work is going to do is really introduce new sources of liquidity into Cosmos that will make it far easier to bootstrap new DeFi systems on top of Cosmos. And there's a huge opportunity. So, you know, the whole goal of Atom 2021 is to fill in the gaps of that exist in the DeFi ecosystem for Cosmos, which is the frozen capital of atoms. That atoms are not free to go out there and create liquidity.
Well, Binance is one thing, but do you view other developing blockchain technologies like, for example, Polkadot as competitors to Cosmos Network? And could you tell us more about the difference between Cosmos and Polkadot in terms of scalability, interoperability, security, and so on?
I mean, so I would say like one of the biggest sort of technical, like Cosmos is primarily a technical bet. So why did I work on Cosmos and not Polkadot, Definity, Ethereum 2.0, etc.? So we inside of Cosmos, especially post Stargate, all of the components of a sharded blockchain exist within Cosmos. Like all of the sort of technical building blocks. But the systems orchestration layer of sharded blockchains is incredibly difficult. And if you look at like what industry progress has been there, it's still fairly disappointing. I spend a lot of time looking at the other sharded blockchain protocols, and that no one has really been able to conquer the technical complexity of dynamically reconfigure. So, essentially what all of these sharded blockchains are is you have a series of Cosmos blockchains. Iqlusion runs multiple Cosmos blockchains. Most validators are on, many Cosmos blockchains. But what the difference between a sharded system and the Cosmos system is your full nodes have to switch what blockchain you're on every few hours.
It's crazy.
So, and if that fails, recovery is very difficult. So now what you have is this, like if a blockchain doesn't, if a Cosmos chain fails to, a bunch of validator nodes halt, a Cosmos chain fails to reach quorum, like now it's really not that big deal. Like some Cosmos chain has lost liveness, you wait for, more validators to wake up, update their software, fix things, move forward. It's not that big a deal. In a sharded blockchain, you have a really difficult problem. Is like a bunch of nodes went down, a shard stopped. Like, how do you recover?
Yeah, well, there are many projects working on this problem, and maybe you heard about Elrond. And
I'm familiar with Elrond, and I know what Elrond does.
What's your opinion about them?
So their solution to this problem is basically to about slow down the rotation. And basically they give like every epoch, your node is like your validator node is going to be off. It's going to be sort of synchronizing to the shard it got switched into, rather than participating in consensus. And this is a plausible approach. to do solving this dynamic reconfiguration problem, but it's not really what everybody likes. It's like certainly like a somewhat inefficient use of resources. And I don't run any Elrond nodes myself, so I don't have as much of a sense of like how well does this work in practice. What does failure recovery look like? So that's the Elrond solution. But basically Polkadot, Ethereum 2.0 are all trying to build the same, near protocol. They're all trying to build the same dynamic reconfiguration system. And so far, they all have different pieces of it. Like, Polkadot has this very cool thing where the same node application can run, like the same code, the same binary can run full nodes for multiple blockchains at the same time. That's pretty cool. I think that's pretty impressive. That's certainly a long way from we switch blockchains and like it all happens seamlessly. The near protocol people have, are all trying to figure out how to make dynamic reconfiguration work. What they've launched with so far is like very comparable to the Cosmos chain today. The Cosmos chain technology that we launched like a year ago. Ethereum 2.0 has made a lot of progress on having their validator nodes switch networks and work with and only talk to like to subnets dynamically. So like they're all trying to pursue the same vision, but I'm not really convinced that I have a lot of skepticism about whether or not this is ever going to really be stable and reliable enough to carry a lot of value. And I don't think anyone knows how long it's going to take and how much it's going to cost to build a system like this that works well. And so in the meantime, Cosmos is moving forward with interoperability between sovereign zones and introducing limited kinds of shared security between those zones and exploring stuff like Lazy Ledger, which can allow for very large systems for shared security, but you don't have to solve any of these dynamic reconfiguration problems. And I think all of that is very exciting. And I think of Cosmos as really, until Avalanche sort of showed up, we were really the only project that was pursuing this kind of architecture. And now it's like us and Avalanche.
Like about the validator oligopolies, that there's a hypothesis that all DPoS systems lead to a state where validators control the system, and basically how to mitigate that problem in Cosmos of having top validator oligopolies that control everything. And
so I think of staking derivatives as perhaps probably so I'm not as concerned about validator oligopolies. What I'm particularly concerned about is exchange validators.
Okay. And what is your concern about the exchange validators? What are the problems do you think they bring?
What exchange validators are doing right now is, I think that, to the extent that a validator oligopoly is excited about a system, is like active contributing active contributing to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
This is good. What the problem with exchange validators are is they are basically inactive from a sort of social technical point of view in the ecosystems that they're part of. they're just mostly just extracting value from blockchain.
Yeah.
And this is, you know, I was broadly optimistic when we started on this, that like this would be slowed down by, you know, regulators kind of being like, no, you can't offer, you know, derivatives as exchanges. But, you know, Coinbase launches Atom staking for the hub.
Yeah, it's a big problem. And according to late statistics, though, people who actually delegate or stake their tokens, they're divided into like 50% that are using you know, non-centralized solutions, and 50% of the people use centralized. And where do you think that trend is going? Do you think we'll see more people using?
I think that if staking derivatives are not launched in 2021, like there will be very little incentive to use not decentralized services. Like it doesn't make any sense. There's no value add. Like there's no point in any of this.
And to provide the infrastructure with users, what UX UI solution or step should be taken, in your opinion?
So, I mean, as I think I talked earlier about this, that it's not a UX UI problem, or the UX UI problem is secondary. There needs to be a sort of a financial use case, a financial incentive, something you can do with your atoms when you stake them in a decentralized setting that you can't do in the centralized setting.
So you mean like more like
without
utility?
Yeah, and without, like, this is why I think yield farming of atoms is so important. Or yield, you know, staking derivatives and yield farming and the AMM are so important. Because if you have all of those, you now create a real financial use case behind your, you know, that drives, you create a real financial use case, a real, you know, yield opportunity for people who are staking in a distributed setting. So rather than, you know, you get 5% with staking with Coinbase, and you get 10% staking decentralized. Like, no one cares. Like, that's not worth the effort. Okay. But, you know, if you are staking with Coinbase, you get your 5%, and you stake on the hub in a decentralized setting, and you get, you know, delegation and reward tokens. And now there are yield farming opportunities to go deploy those delegation and reward tokens that earn you, you know, 1,000% APY. Now you're like, okay, this is clearly what I want to do. This is clearly why I want to use IBC. This is clearly like what the motivation is for using all of these things.
So like financial incentive is the main motivation driver, right?
Yep. And so
yeah, well,
I think this is the real, you know, this is why I think yield, like staking derivatives are so important.
And what other use cases can you like come up with implementing the interoperability and, you know, well, the IBC, but not financial one, you know? Something like connected to digital arts, maybe, or music or something. I don't know.
I mean,
how can we, for what can we,
this is just not what this is like sort of outside of the domain of my like interests in experimenting. Like, like I'm like, I built all this stuff because I wanted to play money games.
Okay.
And like, that's what I think is exciting about blockchains, is the ability to play money games. And I think that you see in like sort of this NFT and what you know, RAC is doing, the RAC token, and all of these things, that like art and money games have always been connected. But I'm not an artist. That's not what I do. But like I've always been pretty interested in building scalable, secure environments.
Well, coming up with solutions for those problems is some kind of art as well, don't you think? Well, and I guess the last question that I'm having for you today, Zaki, is pretty much what Cosmos Networks means to you personally. Also, a hard question, I guess.
It is a hard question. So to me, so when, back in 2016 and you saw the beginnings of this on Ethereum, you started to see the initial token boom on Ethereum. It was very clear to me that like, okay, like to me, like, I'm not that interested in like this whole like, like I'm interested in systems that exist independently of governments. I'm interested in building systems for human coordination and cooperation that are permissionless and democratically accessible. I think that, blockchains should be so like, the most important thing that I think Cosmos is doing is it's trying to make blockchains easy to build. And what the vision of that is really democratizing access to these decentralized state machines. Because I think at maturity, this technology provides a way for human beings to sort of coordinate their interactions and their behaviors and flow of funds and profit sharing and all of these things that we right now do with complex legal agreements with shared secure state machines. And I think this could just become like sort of the routine way in which humans work together. And, so democratizing and so, the other thing is that like, I have never like, I think it is morally acceptable to build casinos. When you build the casino, you also build a railroad to the casino. And when the casino goes down, the railroad is still there. And so I kind of view this sort of these like cyclical bubbles that sort of, and manias that hit the cryptocurrency space as really ways of fleshing out pieces of security, technology, social interaction, all of these stuff. That is the reality. So that's what it means to me. It's like, this is really about the long arc of history and humans and their interactions with computers and technology, how unsafe it is to build the sort of core of your society on a centralized computer that has an admin, and about trying to make the technology of sort of secure, fault-tolerant computation available to the widest possible set of people.
Yeah, well, it's a great goal, and in my opinion, you guys are doing great. So, what advice would you give to hundreds and thousands of coders and researchers that are working on, scalability issues for decentralized systems? What would you advise them to look for, or maybe study or research something?
I mean, so the thing that I think that so I will say this. I would say consensus, which is kind of where I got my start, working on developing different consensus systems, at least from a research point of view, I think is basically a solved problem. I don't think that there's a lot of need for new consensus algorithms. I think the frontiers of blockchains are, zero knowledge proof systems, like the stuff that's coming out of Halo, the Mina, Coda Mina, now called the Mina project, Starkware, all of this stuff is just like, it's mind blowing. The roll up architecture is going to be incredibly powerful. And I think those are the frontiers that, we're starting to see more and more deployed on mainnet.
Great. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Zaki, thank you very much. If you have anything to say from yourself to our readers, go on ahead. If not, then I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you very much.
Great.
So great talking to you, and well,
thank you, man.
I hope that you guys really succeed in what you're doing, and that Stargate comes out as polished and as working as possible. So yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and have a great day.
Great. Thanks, man.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.